And I don't think this is all in my hands, but anyway.
It never is, Ronnie. You know that.
Patty and I have been together for well over 30 years, and she's been on the board with me on our nonprofit. She's a open heart surgery nurse and a fabulous lady, and she has been doing my interviews for me for over 30 years. She used to have a TV program, and I'd hand my clients to her, and then she'd take them to TV. So I'm going to introduce you to Patty, and then I'm going to let her take over and introduce everybody else here, and I'll be right back.
I don't know everyone here, so we're going to figure this out, right? Okay.
Right.
We have Joy. That's the main person. Hello, everyone. I'm Patty Rosser, and I am part of Evolving Health Education. As Ronnie told you, I've been part of that for a long time. I retired a few years ago, and I'm still helping her in whatever capacity I'm able to do. So I love interviewing. I had a cable TV show for a while, so I love talking to people and getting to know what they do, why they do it, how they get to where they came from to where they are today. And as a healer myself, I've been very fortunate to talk to many incredible people throughout the guests that I've had on my show and through Ronnie. So I'm going to, as I guess I'll just introduce you to Joy, because she, this book club that we are started, Joy is going to be doing a series here, as all of you are aware, and she is an amazing woman. I just like being in her presence because she has got this calming joyfulness about her that for me just feels really wonderful. I'm sure you'll get that from her too. She's very inspiring. And
Hey, Patty,
yeah.
before you start, there's some kind of background noise in mine. Is everybody else hearing it?
Well, it's not from mine, so I lost.
I'm gonna mute myself because it might be my fan. Hang on one second.
Yeah, there it is.
There you go, love. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we all need that fan. I don't have mine on right now, but
Hot flashes.
I'm totally with you. I'm still having those at 70. So I'm gonna introduce you to Joy because her story is amazing. She's an amazing woman. And I think you're gonna love her series that we're gonna be doing through Evolving Health Education. So I introduce you to Joy Metcalfe, and she's going to tell you where she was born, how she got here, where she is now, how she got to the journey as a Buddhist priest that she is, and what she's done to this point. So welcome, Joy, to Evolving Health Education Book Club.
I'm very happy to be here. It's very exciting. So my name's Joy Metcalfe, and I am a Vajracharya, which is an ordained Buddhist priest and healer, teacher and healer. And I became one 10 years ago in 2010. I went to China, and I stayed in a monastery for 3 months, and I went through the whole process of being ordained. So it was a real life changer. Kind of we were at the Puzhou Temple, and that was one of the few temples that had survived the Cultural Revolution in China, and so it was very old, and it was pretty amazing being there in many ways. One of them being their outhouses, but other than that, just the experience was very changed my world. I'll start with where I was born. I was born in New York City in Queens, and my parents were immigrants who came here after World War II. They were born in Chile, but they were of British citizenship. So my mother's parents were missionaries, and they came to teach the Mapuche Indians in Chile. And they got here in 1896. And my father's family, his mother's family actually came about 30 years before that, when my great grandfather was, and he took the family and they were going up to Canada from Scotland, and they got shipwrecked off the coast of Concepcion. And my poor great grandmother was pregnant, and she had two little ones. So when they were shipwrecked, it brought on her it brought on her labor, and she got on shore and immediately gave birth to her daughter Maggie. So she refused to ever get on a ship again, and luckily the government of Chile offered my great grandfather, who was an engineer, a job, and that's how they got there. And my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, got there by the Chilean government offered the Scots property if they would come to Chile and develop it. And so he went on that, and he got a like 3,000 or so acre ranchero where he had beef, cattle, and he would go across the Andes and get cattle and bring them back, fatten them up, and sell them. That was his thing. So my father and my aunts and uncles grew up on this really wonderful farm. It was perfect for children. My dad had all these wonderful memories of growing up in a very remote area in a very remote country. And so when they came to America at the end of World War II and got married in New York in 1949, there's my folks. My dad's biggest dream was he and his brother, his younger brother, to start a dairy farm. And so they saved their money, and when I was 9 months old, me and my brother and them went to Manassas, Virginia, where they had a dairy farm, and that didn't work real well because there was the first drought in 40 years. So sadly, about 3 or 4 years later, they had to sell the place and go back to New York. And my mother, luckily, when she came here to America, she came to be an interpreter at the UN. And so she was able to get her old job back. And my dad became a purchasing agent for Foreign Aid and Power in New York. And so that's what they did. And then when I was 6, we all moved to New Jersey, so it would be more rural because that's the life my dad liked. Me too. And I stayed there until I was 18 or 19 years old, 18 years old. And then I went to California and went to school and became, at that time, my first job was I went to City College and I took horticulture and I became a landscaper. My big dream at that point was to do healing gardens, right? That's what I wanted, with herbs and all that stuff. So I eventually moved to Mendocino and started my gardening experience there. And for 7 years, I had a landscaping business up there. But concurrent with that, I began working in the metaphysical world. And the reason I got involved with that is because all my life I had psychic experiences, starting with my birth. I had the experience that I remembered being born, which is something that I never talked about. But what I mean when I say I remembered being born is it was more like it was a sound that I heard, that like a roaring that you put up to your ear. And that roaring made me ask, how is this different? And when I asked that question, I was immediately reminded of what it was like being in utero. And then I was shown or reminded what it was like to be in what we call now in Buddhism, the Bardo state, of being without a body. And then it was like a movie started to the left of me. And that's like the mind engaging, which happens at a certain point ideally after you incarnate, right? And so I had these experiences where it would be like a movie going. It was black, it was gray, it was white, and then it turned into black and white, and then it became color, you know, and it would stop and I would see a scene, I would remember it. And that went on to my 5th birthday. And then through my life, from there on, I had these abilities that really were comforting to me. If ever I had a problem or something as a kid, I could go to bed and I would dream the answer to it. You know, like we lived next to a busy road, and the cats and dogs sometimes would get, you know, hit. And so if the cats didn't come home at night and I was worried about them, I could find out if they were alive or not. So that made me feel somehow comforted, you know. So all that psychic ability at that point, though I never gave it that name at that time, was a comforting thing until my early 20s, you know, when I started having these experiences where I would start getting information about people. And it was never the good stuff. It was always their pain and agony and unresolved conflicts. And I really didn't like it. I was a young person and I had enough of my own problems, right? I didn't need anybody else's, right? And, we'd go out with friends to dinner and we'd sit next to a couple, and invariably it would be a couple who was having problems and I would get all that information. And so it took me a while, but I started being able to just block it off. And I probably would have gone through my life like that, just, you know, shutting it down, not getting involved because I didn't know what to do with it. But when I was in my 20s, my mid-20s rather, it started bumping up even more. And now I started having, you know, experiences in my dream state, which was, you know, my safe place. So, and I had these green lights that were calling me and I didn't know what it meant, and it freaked me out and scared me. And so one night I had this experience where the green lights called me, and it felt like I went to this like Victorian house, and I went into the threshold of the doorway, and there in the room were 2 green lights, and there was a male light and he was lying on a couch. There was a female light standing next to him, and the male light said, "Hey, come here, you know, I'm your great friend and buddy." And I was like, no, I'm scared. I don't want to. And the female light said, "Oh, for goodness sake, just make her do it. She's being ridiculous." And I was like, "No, don't do that." So then I walked in and I touched his hand, and I immediately woke up and I thought, "Oh my God, I did it." And I was like, what did I do? I don't know what this is. And now I'm really freaked out. And I realized that the connection had been so strong that now they were in the room with me. That really freaked me out. So I turned the light on. I went through a period of nights with the light on, right? But I got over that. And this is nothing I could talk to anybody about. I probably would have found a way to block that too. But shortly after that, I had the experience where I woke up in the middle of the night, which I often did. And I think about what I was going to do in my landscaping job the next day, you know, what flowers I would put where. And, you know, I'd think about it and then I roll over, go back to sleep. It was a good thing. I didn't mind waking up. This time I woke up, I started thinking about what I was going to do. I rolled over to go back to sleep. Then I heard, and I lived in a cabin in the woods in Mendocino at this point. And so I heard the door of my cabin open and somebody walk across the hallway into my room, sit on my bed and put their hand on my back and say, "I've been wanting to talk to you." And I wasn't scared, strangely enough, but I wanted to turn around and say, "Who are you?" And I couldn't move. And then I wrenched myself around and I said, "Who are you?" And there was nobody there. But when I looked across the room, there was a pink swirling light. And at that moment, I said, "That's it. That's it. I've had it. Enough with this." And that's when I called a woman who I'd heard about in town, who was a psychic teacher. And I had thought that she was just too woo-woo for me. I wasn't going there. I didn't want to develop my psychic abilities. But I called her, I got her on the first ring, and I told her the whole story. Green lights, people walking in, you know, beings touching my back. Oh my God. And she said something that I thought was very profound in retrospect. She said, you know, Joy, it sounds to me like you really need to get grounded, which was exactly what needed to happen, because being grounded means you're centered in your body. And then you can get into that state where, you know, the heart and mind come together in neutrality, and you don't have opinion. You're not saying this is good, this is bad. It's more like you're in that state of, isn't this interesting? What's going on? So I worked with her. I took all her classes for 3 years, and I graduated from the Albion Healers Guild in 1981. And I started doing, giving readings and doing more energy healing, but not like Reiki, because I didn't know about it then. And I also graduated with a friend, and together we created the Mendocino Holistic Life Center. And we ran that for 5 years. And we have 14 practitioners, doctors, nurses, yoga practitioners. It was really nice, except it was also, it got to the point that there was some problems with egos floating around, and, you know, so eventually after 5 years, it was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And we both decided we would never have a center again. It's just too much. So shortly after that, I found out about Reiki, and my friend had moved up to Washington with her husband because he got a job up there as a physician's assistant. And she became a Reiki practitioner, and then got her Reiki teacher certification. And she called me up, and I was married at that time, and I had just had my youngest, who was 2, and I had just weaned him. And she said, I'm teaching a Reiki certification program next weekend. You got to take it, you know, come up, stay with me. You know, I'd really love to have you. And to be honest, the only thing I thought at that moment is that I would be able to go away and have a weekend of sleep with no child waking me up, no infant, you know. And so I was like, and I could, you know, tell my husband that it was, you know, for business. So you know, he couldn't say no. And it was the first time he ever watched my son on his own overnight. So it all worked out, but that's what drove me there. But when I got there and I learned Reiki, I was blown away. I just knew that this was part of, you know, my bag of healing tricks. And that was another, you know, like doing the Albion Healers Guild rocked my world. Doing the Reiki teaching, you know, a certification rocked my world. Those were like 2 major events. And and I just went with it, you know, and I got very involved. I had very good success with my Reiki healings. And in 1994, I started the Reiki pilot program at St. Luke's Hospital in San Francisco. And I was the director of it, and I had my students working there. And we worked in the subacute ward, and the subacute ward is a ward where either the patient's going to be there for a very long time or they're never going to leave. And they're always on some form of life support. And so what happened with us there is that people started leaving. And it was the only thing that changed was they started getting Reiki. And that was pretty profound at the time. Nobody else had let Reiki in to the hospitals. So, you know, and it was hard in the beginning because the nurses didn't really believe what we were doing, but they came around, and by the end of the 5 years, they were totally on board. And in many ways, that's what we were doing, is we were supporting the nurses because they are the workhorses of the hospital. And but at the same time, during that period of time, I had moved to Sebastopol to take care of my elders, my mother, my father, and my aunt. And I had gotten a divorce. My son was 5. I was really tired, and I was so tired. My dad had a heart attack. My mother had Alzheimer's, and my aunt, had post polio syndrome, and she was in a wheelchair. So I had my hands full, and I started looking for ways because I knew I couldn't sustain this level of tiredness without something happening, right? And when I had been taught Reiki, I was told that giving Reiki, you should be able to give Reiki, like 24/7 and never be tired, and because you just let the energy flow through you. And and I was like exhausted. There were times after the end of my work day where I sat in the chair and I could barely get up, and it'd be like, get up and pick your kid up, at daycare, Joy. It's like, any minute now, I'll do it, So I got on a mission. I'm doing something wrong, was where I went. I'm doing something wrong. I'm too tired, and I'm not replenishing myself. And that became a quest for me. And with that quest, my family sent me to Hawaii for a few days, which is very nice of them. That was my Mother's Day present. I didn't know what to do with myself because I wasn't working, but I went into a bookstore, and there in the bookstore, as I walked in the front door, was a book that said Transform Stress into Vitality. And that teacher was Mantak Chia. And I bought that book. I read it from cover to cover, and I started implementing his teachings. And not about a month later, he was teaching a workshop in San Francisco, which I took. And so I started learning how to replenish myself. And I started understanding what the concept of replenishment was all about, because we don't do that so much in the Western world. In the Western world, it's always about the Nike, just do it, but that's why people don't have the vitality that they could. You stop enjoying life when you're that tired, right? And then in 1996, again, as I'm on this mission, this quest now, how do you heal? How do you be vital, full of vitality? I learned about Chinese herbs and Chinese medicine with Bill and Sean Fannin. And then from there, I just kind of developed a whole protocol, learning about creating something that I call the 4 pillars of health. And I learned, have a friend, Laurie Grant, who created Arch, which is a master healing thing similar to Reiki, which I took some classes with. And I was very lucky too. In 2002, I was voted the best Reiki master teacher by Share Guide magazine, and actually the best psychic too. That was a good year. And then in 2003, I studied with Qigong master Chu, and he's an amazing guy. He's really a master. He's like an old school master from China. Doesn't really speak English, but his wife does. So she kind of translates for him. And he does something that's called iron crotch. And there's this technique this is like, Shaolin temple type of Qigong, where you pick up heavier and heavier objects, and it builds the energy or strengthens the connective tissue of the pelvic floor, and it has amazing effects. And so he taught this thing called the Long Life Health Bar training, which is using a titanium steel like whisk where you tap the different meridians. And that gets rid of the toxins that get stuck in your body. It's really a great practice. Anyway, I also still do offer an 18-month Reiki clinic program for Reiki practitioners, so that after you get, because in my lineage, we teach the Reiki mastership in a weekend, which is great. You know, I mean, we've done it for a very, long time, 50, 60 years, but a lot of people don't have the basic tools to know what to do with it then. And so I started offering that. And in 2010 is when I became, went to China and became a Buddhist priest, because I had reached a point in my spiritual life where I felt like I had gone as far as I could on my own. And I wanted more. I wanted to understand what enlightenment was and to get there if I could in this lifetime, if that was possible. And so I began calling for my teacher, and what happened, because, there's that saying that says when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? So sometimes you don't know you're ready, but often I think students start calling or asking for it. They want more. And what had happened to me is that I had given a woman a reading because her husband was a chiropractor, a very well-known chiropractor in Orange County. And unbeknownst to him, he had gallbladder disease, and his gallbladder burst and he almost died. It was terrible. And he was always this very vital guy, and he ended up in a wheelchair after being in the hospital for a long time. And he just wasn't getting better. And she called me in desperation saying, what can I do? How can I help? The poor guy was depressed. Who wouldn't be? And I told her, apparently, I don't remember this, but this is what she said. I told her to call this Vedic astrologer to find out what his Mahadasha, which is a time period, was right now. Because that kind of gives you an idea of, are you in an easy time? Are you in a difficult time? So would it be easy for him to get better? And so she went to him, to the Vedic astrologer, Stephen Kwong. And he was a disciple of this living Buddha, Dechan Jiren, and who was there at the time and giving healings. And so Stephen asked my friend if she would like to have her husband get a healing from him. And she was on board for that. And literally what happened is that she wheeled her husband into the healing session and he walked out. He was healed. And that's how quick it was, just like that. And so she called me up and she was blown away, and oh my God, I said, thank you. This was just amazing. My husband has his life back. And this guy's teaching a class in San Francisco on this weekend. Can you go? Do you want to go with us? And it was a weekend, the only weekend I had off for a long period of time. And it was close. And I was like, I am in. And then she called me back and said, he changed the weekend and he changed the place. Now it's in Las Vegas, and it was on a weekend I was teaching. And for me at that time, it was like, what? You don't do that. You make a time, you make a place, and you just do it. But not when you're an enlightened Buddha. You work with causes and conditions that we can't see. So he had to change it for some reason. I don't know. Whatever it was, I didn't go. And I always regret that now, unfortunately. But I made a decision after she called me back after she and her husband went, and she was like, it was the most amazing experience I have ever had. And I was like, no, I missed it. And then she called later to say, look, the abbot of his temple is teaching a medicine Buddha class on this weekend, and I'm going to host it. Do you want to come? And I said, yes. And then she called back and said, I'm changing the weekend. And I was like, no. And she said, But he said that if that weekend is the only weekend you can do it, and you want to host it up there and you can get more than 4 people, he'll come up and teach it. And I was like, great, I'll do it. And I got quite a few more people than 4. And it was a really good class, and I was really happy. Medicine Buddha is a incredible healing practice. And so, you know, throughout the weekend, he was he's a really nice guy. You could tell his heart connection, you know, to Master Yu, Dechang Jiren. And, you know, as my master says, my master, you know, it was very, very sweet. And after the class, I said, you know, Dan, I can tell that he's your guy, you know, you found your master, but how do I know if he's my master? And he said, well, you call his Dharma name, Dechang Jiren, you chant it, and you ask him, see, and then look out, see what happens. And I was like, right, okay. And so Dan left, and I started chanting. He left in the morning on Monday after the weekend. And so Monday, all day, I start chanting, Dechang Jiren, are you really real, like a real Buddha, you know? And am I meant to be a part of this? And that night, I went to bed around 9 o'clock because I'm tired. You know, it's been a big weekend. And I no sooner did I put my head on my pillow than I started having this ridiculous, really interesting experience in my heart that I had never had before. And I couldn't, it was like a pressure, and I didn't know what it was. And I thought, am I having a heart attack? What is going on? And I was like, no, I'm too young, you know, I eat well. Okay, I could exercise more, and I will, you know. But so what I would do is I would kind of breathe it away, you know, I would breathe it away, and then it would come back, and then I'd breathe it away. And that went on for a while. And all of a sudden I heard this voice say to me, Joy, your heart chakra is opening. Let it happen. And I was like, really? It's my heart chakra opening? Not a heart attack, right? So I thought, okay, I'll just let it happen. And I just let it happen. And I had this, I got suffused with energy. It was like a wave that came over me like that. And it was like these clouds parted, and there looking at me right in my eyes was Master Yu. So we'd been given a picture of him. And he said, yes, I'm real. And yes, you're meant to be a part of this. And I was like, okay, thank you. And then I like woke up or whatever. And I said, oh my God, and first I was like, oh my God, my heart opened. It's too big for my chest. My rib cage is too small. And I had to like do stretching so I could fit it all in, you know? And then I thought, that was amazing. Who can I tell? I'm going to call my friend. I looked at the time and it was 2 in the morning. It's like, yeah, I don't think I can be calling anybody. But for me, it was like seconds went by, minutes, you know? So that's how I knew that he was my master and that I was going to study with him. And that's how I ended up in Chengdu, China, in a monastery, because shortly after that, he offered to do what's called the Dharani, which is 108 days of a training. And so I was there, and there were people from all over the world, 33 as a matter of fact. There were 33 of us from all over the world. And we used to get up every day between 5 and 6 and chant for 2 hours. And then we got taught all these dharmas, all these teachings. And then we would chant at night until from 9 to 10 or 11. It was very full.
Joy, excuse me for 1 minute. Patty's telling me that she can't see her screen. Is everybody else seeing the PowerPoint and the screen okay?
I am.
Everybody's good?
Yeah.
Okay, it's just my computer.
I
I can
see
see
it.
you.
I'm seeing it too.
That's the most important part. I see you, Joy, but
Okay.
and the girls, but I don't have anything on my screen. But I don't know why.
Okay, I didn't want to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure everybody was seeing here, so,
Right.
okay. Thank
Well,
you.
but we're getting the information. That's the most important part. That's it.
So anyway, the reason that Master Yu decided to teach this Dharani is because he knew that the coming times were going to be difficult. When he reached enlightenment in 1989, his master came and took him to a cave in a remote part of China, and for 6 months he was in that cave. He said mostly on his knees, doing meditations and dharmas until he attained. And at that point, he became aware of the fact that difficult times were coming, and that it was his duty, his work to help. And so he became the 49th lineage holder of Hanmi Buddhism when he attained. And and so his job was to spread the teachings. And in Hanmi Buddhism was underground for over 1,200 years. It's began in 612 AD, when what we call the three great founders came to China. And it was Subha Karasima, Vajrabodhi, and Amoghavajra. And they together formed two different lineages, came together. And they also took the lineage of the people of China at the time, which was Confucianism and Taoism. And so they put these, because they were skillful, because they were enlightened, they were able to take the truth of all of them, put them together, and they made Hanmi Buddhism. And it was very powerful. And it was so powerful that first it was really coveted by the first emperor. But when he died, the emperor that was next felt threatened by it, because the people listened more to the Buddhist priests than they did to the emperors. And so he made it illegal. And he broke the chain, or the function of the effective function of Buddhism. So in our lineage, we work with the three mysteries: mantra, mudra, and visualization. And it's these three, you have to have all three in any kind of meditation for it to be really effective. But in China, that was broken. You weren't allowed to use mantra, mudra, and visualization. So they mostly, that's what the emperor decreed. And then he just decreed that it was illegal. And he killed a lot of monks, and everybody scattered. And it was believed at that time that Hanmi Buddhism was lost, but it wasn't. Hui Su was the lineage holder, and he went underground, and he had all the Dharma tools, which are understanding of the Dharmas, because he had attained. And so from that time, for 1,200 years, Hanmi Buddhism was taught from one teacher to one student, making that student become attained or enlightened, until 1989, when Master Yu became enlightened, and then his mission was to spread the teachings again to the outside world, because of the coming needs of the times. So that's what our job is. And every meditation that we teach to help people for these coming difficult times. And so the one that I'm offering here, which is called Weight Balance, is on the simple level, it's one that balances your weight, so if you're, and a lot of people now, women in particular, have issues with gaining too much weight too easily. And it's like, why is that? If you look at pictures in the past, of people, it was unusual to be overweight. Most people were thin, but now, it's become more and more usual for people to have weight issues. And why is that? And, there's a lot of reasons. There's, the benefit of a lot of, modern times. There's not the food scarcity that we used to have in the past, but there's more stresses. And what those stresses, and also with those stresses, we're no longer working in concert with nature. And what that has done is it has affected the elemental balance within the body. So the balance of water and fire, or yin and yang. And so if you gain weight easily, it means that your water is imbalanced, your yin energy is imbalanced. If you don't gain weight easily, or maybe you can't gain weight and you would like to, it's because you have too much fire in your body and your fire balance is out of balance. And so what this meditation does is it starts to balance those two properties within you again. And it allows you to change the way you think that has created the imbalance. Because no matter what goes on outside of you, it's your reaction and the decisions that you make in reaction to what's going on that causes the state that you're in physically, right? So what we talk about is being able to get to the state that no matter what the eyes see, the ears hear, the nose smells, or the tongue tastes, it does not disturb your inner world stability. And so if you're having a lot of health problems, there's that aspect going on. It might not be the whole aspect, but it is an aspect of what's happening. You have causes and conditions that come together. Everything that you have going on in your life right now, and that means for us on a global level with a pandemic, but everything else in our lives right now is because of causes and conditions, things we have done or have not done, thoughts we have had or we have not had for the past 5 to 7 lifetimes. So they come and then they ripen, and this is our reality here. And so we may not have a lot of control over that, but what we absolutely have control over is what we do with those causes and conditions. So the situation occurs, what are you going to do with it? And that's what Hanmi Buddhism is all about, is it's helping you to be able to change fixed patterns within you that no longer serve you or maybe never did. It helps you to be able to attain a state that's called right view, looking at things in the correct way so that you can work with them instead of be, victim of them. And that's what some of the many benefits that happen with this, well, with all meditations, but specifically with this one, can help you with if you're eating issues and things like that. And so this is a really nice meditation. I like to teach it a lot because it's so rich. It has so many different aspects to it. It helps you. Part of what this meditation can do is it relaxes you. So if you tend to be a tense person, which I have been in the past, I was a tense person. I tended to tension. Doing these meditations, one of the signs of moving forward, of having levels of attainment, is that you learn to relax. And when you do, it's because you're letting go of constructs in your mind that don't serve you. That's what tension is created by. So those constructs, they could be anger, They could be fear, you know, things like that, that can cause that that state of tension within, or just even having what they call dual consciousness, right? Divided mind, where you're thinking too many things at the same time. You know, it's like, you know, one of the things as women we say, you know, we multitask, but that's stressful, right? We multitask because we have to, right? But it creates a level of stress. Let's be real, because it divides the mind, because you're thinking of many things at the same time. So it helps release that tension, which is very nice. Anyway, I really like this meditation, and there's many great benefits to it. And it does, what it does is it helps you digestively. It helps your digestion get stronger. It helps you get to the point that it clears any blockages in any of your channels and veins and arteries in your body. And it helps your nerve points run unobstructed and become relaxed, so that, you know, your pains in your body can go away. So it helps you return to your original state, which is a state of ease.
Joy, how long is the meditation?
The meditation's like 10 to 20 minutes, depends on how long you want to, you know, like get involved with it. After a while, you kind of, it can be longer because you enter into state, you know, you kind of go into a place with it. But in the beginning, it's about 10 minutes, you know, sometimes 20. I find it's about, when I teach it, it's about 18 minutes, you know. So it's doable, it works with these times. And then you also get the mantra. And the wonderful thing about the mantras mean a churning of the mind. And what chanting a mantra a lot does is it changes your mind. It helps your mind, you know, really, the mind is supposed to be a tool for us. It's like having a computer, you know, but the computer is supposed to do what we tell it to, right? You know, so the story that is often said in Buddhism is, you know, the soul comes in, it's like the soul comes in from the airport, right? Gets off the plane, goes out, and it gets into a taxi cab and it says, I want to go to the beach, right? But what happens now, ideally, you know, the being comes into the body and says, okay, mission in this lifetime is blah, 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 right? And then the mind goes, that's right, and I'm going to help you get there. But what happens is you get into the taxi cab and you say, I want to go to the beach. And the driver, the mind, says, what do you want to go to the beach for? You know, we'll go there eventually, but let me show you the sights here, you know. And so next thing you know, you're nowhere near the beach. You're, you know, looking at a bookstore or something. And that's kind of how we live our lives. You know, we come in, we have missions, we have things to do, but the mind, instead of supporting us in that, gets distracted. And we end up not achieving our goals.
Joy, what do you mean teach it? How do you teach it?
How do you teach the mind?
No, how do you teach the meditation in the class? Is that this weight balance class?
Yes. So how I teach it is we have mantra, we have mudra, and we have visualization. So a mantra is a series of sounds that we make that have certain effect on the mind. Okay, so it puts the mind into a certain state. And this one is the one that we use for weight balance. It's very simple. It's only about 4 or 5 words. And it's from Zundi Bodhisattva, who is one called the mother of all Buddhas, mother of all Buddhas of the Lotus family. And so that's her right there. And you see she has many hands. And in each hand is an ability that she has. So she's prayed to by Buddhists for protection. So what is happening when you chant a mantra as you're doing a visualization, and you're chanting to Zundi, you're asking her to protect your mind so that you can go back into a balance of health, in weight balance. Okay. And so that's where the mind goes. And sometimes the mind gets right in there and says, yeah, great. This is wonderful. This is just what I wanted. I forgot. And sometimes it goes, no, I'm not going to do that. That's why sometimes you can have a really great meditation, and sometimes you like, I'm not doing this, clearly I'm not doing this. And so that's why you have to have what we call sustained vigor. You have to be able to just stay with the program. So this meditation helps you return to your original state of being, So when you are in your original state, then the natural intelligence of the body reasserts itself. And you can be in a state of health that flows just naturally. And you have good health. And so the natural regulatory ability of the body reasserts itself, and you consciously eat foods that support that instead of having the Rocky Road ice cream at 10 o'clock at night. Little thing.
Like chocolate chip cookie. Yeah.
Right. Hey, and having it now and then, so what? And
Exactly.
if your system's healthy enough, so what? You're balanced. You can have a little bit of ice cream. It's when you have the whole thing of ice cream and you're eating it as you binge watch Netflix.
Sure.
Which, not that I've ever done that, mind you, but I've heard stories about that, So anyway, so this helps you with that. And so our environment now, the environment that we have now naturally causes us to go into a state of stress and imbalance, which is a lot of why we're experiencing the difficulties that we're experiencing, like with climate change and the pandemic, because the pandemic and the climate change, they're linked. This just didn't happen out of the blue. Even the scientists said that one of the things that's happening with the poles melting is that there are viruses there that are being released that, have lain dormant for a long time. This is all part and parcel of us not working with the rhythm of nature anymore. And so, that's the lesson. Can we just get back in with that rhythm of nature? Can we work with that? There's kind of like a backlash that we're going to have to go through, but we have the opportunity to go into a golden age. That's the opportunity. It's still there, So hopefully we'll allow ourselves to get there. I believe that the issue here, the poison of mind that we're dealing with in this kota, in this age, is greed. And this age is coming to an end now. So whenever an age comes to an end, then the constructs that were created in that age that were not in alignment with nature crumble. So yeah, I'm just thinking, corporations, capitalism, maybe not be so much, a part of what will be retained, but it will be interesting to see.
Absolutely.
So anyway, in my classes, what we'll do, I'll give you I'll give you the audio of the meditation, because really, if you want to get the benefit of this meditation, you want to do it every day, at least once a day. If you really want to be hardcore, you do it 4 times a day. If you're like, I'm going in, then that's 4 times a day. But it's only 18 minutes, so it's not that big a deal. But so with each class, I'm going to talk about different things, because things come up. And one of the things that comes up is, thank you, Brenda, for listening, there's different stages in the meditation process. You go into different stages of consciousness, and they're called the 7 touches. And so, sometimes you can get into a state where you feel very cold. You're like, what's going on? I'm really cold. Or very hot. Sometimes you get itchy, but this is when you get in a certain state, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to have the mind let go enough that you enter what they call enter the stream, which means you're going through this construct that keeps you in this reality. So what Master Yu said is he held up a piece of paper and he said, what keeps you, is the barrier between this and the rest of the world is as thin as this piece of paper. But because you believe it, it stops you from moving on, right? From expanding your consciousness. And so to me, when you get into that state, it's almost like you have to go through an electrical fence, so there's like these physical things that happen. And the job is to just have your mind just stay calm as you go through it, no reaction, because that now you're not there anymore, But so things happen. So as you get closer and closer to this electrical field, you get different feelings. You can get hot, you can get cold, you can get itchy, you can feel like you're falling forward. There are a few of them. So I'll talk more about that in the class. Because in my lineage, the whole point is to attain enlightenment in this lifetime, in this body. And so every meditation that we offer, if you're serious about them and you do the practices, you will, if you don't attain fully, you will move forward. So towards that state, So up to us, obviously, at the end of the day, the whole thing can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right?
Right.
And we have this incredible opportunity right now because everybody's on lockdown.
Exactly.
We have this opportunity to really focus on changing our minds. There's that whole saying that says, change your mind, change your life. We could do it. We could do it now. And one thing I can say absolutely, for what has happened for me personally in doing this work, is that I have reached a state of happiness that, like you get to a state of happiness for no reason. I don't know. I don't get upset easily. I still can. You can still get me, but it's usually driving in the car with the fools and idiots. And that's how you'll know when I'm enlightened, is that I'm driving in traffic and I'm like, la, la, la. So, yeah, she did it. She's enlightened now. That still is an area of work for me. Always has been.
That's going to be an area of work for everyone.
Yeah. Well, some people are better at it than others. So they have other areas, but that's mine. That is my area right there.
Well, awesome.
And for me, I've had experiences. I'm more relaxed. I'm more relaxed than I ever have been because I've let go of a lot of what my mind was clutching onto. We call it grasping, And so anyway, the benefits are immeasurable. And I can say that just from personal experience. And how it will work for you, what it will do for you, that's individual, but there's a general field that we all seem to move from because we're all similar in many ways, but we're also very individual. So you get the ultimate benefit of this class, that you can rebalance, the ethers, in your body, the fire and the water, have greater health, better digestion. But along with that, all these other changes can happen too. And so
Joy, when you're doing these, so you have, I don't know how many mantras or mudras or whatever you have, but say we're doing this one. And so do you continue doing that one? Do you add another one? Are you doing 3 or 4? How does that all?
No, you only use, in this meditation, there's just one mantra, and it's Om Jale, Jule, Junde, Soha. That's the Zundi mantra. Easy.
Oh, sure.
Will you do that again, please?
Say it 3 times because I have to transmit it.
Okay.
Ongjale, Jule, Junde, Soha. Ongjale, Jule, Junde, Soha. Ongjale, Jule, Junde, Soha. And the more you say it, you want to chant this mantra so much that it vibrates in every cell of your body.
I can feel the vibration already. Yeah.
When you chant it so much, you want to wake up in the middle of the night and this mantra is going on in your head, right? That's the kind of devotion if you want to make change, right? And a lot of us, hey, I can be there too, I want to eat my Rocky Road and be thin at the same time. Is that too much to ask? Well, not if you're eating the whole thing, right? Let's be real. You have to work with, the causes and conditions of nature. But, if you really want to make change and you devote yourself to the process, this path will get you there. So I can say that to you. Absolutely. So.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's the information for everybody to read. The class starts April 6th. This class was just the introduction. Starts on the 13th through May 18th.
Right.
7 to 8.
7 to 8 p.m.
And you can register at info@evolvinghealtheducation.org.
And if you want more information, just call me and use that same email address or write me or whatever, and we'll tell you more. We've got another week before it starts. So if you know anybody that would want to see this recording, we'll send the recording out to somebody and you can share. And so we're keeping our price, the early bird special. So you bring a friend. So you're talking $37.50 for 6 weeks of classes and ongoing newness in life.
Yeah, I've already signed up.
So if you have any questions, anything, just call me, and if I don't know, then I'll get a hold of Joy.
Thank you, Joy. You're such a delight to listen to, and your presence is just very joyful. So I enjoy being around you.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking forward to teaching the class, and that's what I like to do now is to spread the teaching. So
absolutely, you're in your perfect place, and
yeah,
this is a perfect opportunity for most of us too.
it is. It's really, it's the gift of this difficult time is that, by doing this meditation, it will boost your immune system. You will be stronger, So,
Well, we all need that. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely right.
But Tina and Jerry, thanks for being with us tonight. Please, everybody, share it. Let's share Joy. I'm amazed. I mean, there's a lot of things I'm amazed, but you being one of 5 women Buddhist priests in the United States, that is amazing to me.
Your journey alone is amazing. So
yeah, the whole journey.
Thank you so much, Joy, and everyone. It was wonderful to hear your journey.
Great.
Thanks,
Well, thank you.
Bettina.
Yes, I'll help spread the word.
Great.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay,
Good night, everyone.
everybody.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you for coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good night, Joy.
Good night.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Goodbye.
Bye.